Hey guys, let a few people come into the room before we get rolling here. I know a lot of you are probably on your way to school or work right now, and we've got some pretty cool news. I got this news from a friend of mine, John Crump, and it's pretty cool. Polymer 80 is, relatively speaking, back in business. It would appear that a judge in the Northern District of Texas, Judge O'Connor, has, from all intents and purposes, released a preliminary injunction against the ATF regarding Polymer 80. This means that Polymer 80 now will resume business, and they have resumed business. If you go to their website, Polymer 80's website, you're going to see that they are taking pre-orders for their frames or their frame kits that will include the jig. Essentially, it boiled down to Judge O'Connor saying that the ATF, as we all know, does not have the right or the authority to rewrite a rule. Now, the ATF was attempting to reinterpret the language, as they have tried to do in many of these instances, regarding frames, regarding stabilizing braces. That's been their end around. They have attempted to say that, hey, we know we don't have the authority to make a law, so we're not making laws. All we're doing is changing the wording of existing laws, and that's their way to try to do the end around in passing more laws. Well, that's not the way the laws work, or that's not the way the country works. Congress's job is to change laws. If Congress wants to change the wording of a law, they do that. They don't cede that power to the ATF, which is what they've done. So this judge is essentially telling Congress, you do your job, ATF, you stay in your lane. This is not your job to do. If the ATF wants to interpret rules, and if it would involve changing the impact of a law on a law-abiding citizen, then the ATF can present something to Congress and ask Congress to vote on that in order to make that a law. Now, we know we have a bunch of turncoats in Congress and the Senate anyway, so I don't have a whole lot of confidence in them, but it just shows you how cowardly Congress and the House is. Even when either party has the power to do something, they still don't do it the right way, which is through the court system. They push all that responsibility off to the ATF and ask the ATF to do their jobs for them so that their hands are clean. In other words, if they were to pass an anti-gun law, at least if the ATF is doing that and reinterpreting some kind of a rule reinterpreting some kind of a law that is going to all of a sudden make a bunch of people illegal, well, guess what? Now the people who are promoting that and okay with that in the House or the Senate can hide behind the ATF and say, oh, we didn't do this. The ATF did that. That's not us. I didn't do that. So, they're thinking that way, that they're sidestepping any kind of real responsibility in their own districts, because this way, hey, technically I didn't do it. It was the ATF, and I'm going to get to the bottom of this. They talk tough and act like they really didn't mean to do that, when all along they would have voted for it anyway. So this is interesting, because I do feel like, in terms of precedent, this also sets the stage for what we're talking about with the stabilizing braces. I think this, again, as I say, in many cases, these types of rulings have ripple effects. So if a judge is going to state that the ATF does not possess the power or the authority to rewrite a rule that in turn rewrites the meaning and interpretation of a law, which would suddenly make a bunch of people illegal and change the definition of something that is supposed to be, locked in to stone by the Congress, then certainly that will also apply to stabilizing braces. Because if we're talking about gun parts, which is what Polymer 80 is, they're selling gun parts and kits like that. The stabilizing brace is nothing more than a gun part / accessory. So I feel like this is going to be nothing. It's going to do the same thing, because now they're going to have the challenge of trying to say, okay, wait a minute, if this logic applies to Polymer 80 and their quote parts, and that the ATF can't rewrite a law that suddenly makes a bunch of people illegal, doesn't this same logic apply when applying it to stabilizing braces? And it in fact does. So I think this is, for one, this is a great victory for Polymer 80. I'm glad for them and the whole 80% market. I'm glad for them in general, the whole market, not just Polymer 80. This is good. Obviously, Polymer 80 has a much larger part of the market share right now. But I do think that this is really good. These guys, the ATF, this has to continue to happen. It has to. Because these people are overstepping their bounds. They're being emboldened by the DOJ, by the White House. These people need to be put back in their place. And I think the only way to do that is through the court system, because unfortunately our politicians don't have the guts to go in there and actually do anything to force the ATF to back off and stop doing any of this. Our politicians are just as big a cowards as anybody else that we have in Washington, D.C. So this is the way I think it's going to happen. It will have to go through the court system. I think no matter what we do, the courts are going to be the ones that are going to have to, unfortunately, the attorneys, which I have very little confidence in many cases, but attorneys are going to have to be the ones that are going to be striking this kind of stuff down, because at some point, if this stuff keeps up like it is, we're going to wind up right back at the Supreme Court again. Now, I know what you're thinking. You know, Bruen was pretty obvious and pretty straightforward, and they have managed to sidestep all of that. I get that, but Bruin's not over with either. I mean, a lot of the things that these other areas are doing to sidestep Bruen and violate it along with the Constitution, that's winding back up in the court system. Yes, it's a slow roll. Yes, it's something that is unnecessary and shouldn't have to happen, but it does happen, and it's happening right now. Fortunately, in most cases, and really, if you look at the track record, practically all of the cases, the Second Amendment is prevailing. It's just that it shouldn't take this long, drawn-out process to do it, and I get that and I understand that. I think the key is going to be, at some point, we got to put pressure back on Congress to do their jobs. By their ceding this power to the ATF, again, they're ducking any kind of legitimate responsibility that they have, and it is their responsibility. These people can go in there and make a difference and make a change. And I feel like if we don't push them, that's never going to happen, because they're quietly sitting back, watching the ATF lose at this point at every turn. And again, it doesn't reflect on them. It doesn't affect their records at all. They have a totally clean record. Everybody in Congress right now, for all the gun control except for the law that got passed last summer, for every negative thing going on right now with the ATF, not one single politician has a blemish on their record, because they have allowed the ATF to cede the power from them and assume that power. We've got to make it to where this does start adding blemishes to those people's records and stop allowing them to cowardly pass away this responsibility to some unelected bureaucracy. It's not right. It's unconstitutional. And we need to make these people do their jobs. Look, they do so little anyway. Just do your jobs. And I know what you're thinking. We'd rather these guys not be in Washington, because whenever they're not in Washington, they're doing a whole lot less harm. Doesn't matter. It's their job, and we need to hold them accountable. Guys, we have nobody to hold accountable when the ATF does things like this. We can't unelect them. We can't vote the ATF out. At least there's some kind of a threat of someone losing their job in Congress whenever they do unconstitutional things. The ATF can do this all day long, and they're protected by the White House and the DOJ. So it's important that we push all this responsibility back to Congress at some point. And the only way to do that is to reach out and tell them. But in the end, this Polymer 80 thing is a good deal. I'm glad for Polymer 80. I'm glad for the industry in general to have this kind of a thing. It's exciting to me to see Polymer 80 immediately put stuff back on their website for pre-order. So if you're looking for one of those frame kits, go out to Polymer 80 or anybody else that might start, I guess, ramping their production back up again, and support those businesses, because they're spending a lot of money in court right now. And it'd be nice to see some of these people stick around, because the gun community really does need to stick together. Whether you're a kit person, a Polymer 80 person, or a stabilizing brace person, we've said it a gazillion times. Everything that you like, or anything that you like, will be next at some point. It's just stepping stones to them. Right now it's Polymer 80. Then it's, right now it's 80% kits. Then it's stabilizing braces, bump stocks. What's next? Is it going to be semi-automatic pistols? because that's being discussed also. So as a unit, I think we all have to come together and all support each other in this industry as a whole and as a group to make any kind of a real impact. Guys, have a great Tuesday. Kind of a dreary day down here in Louisiana, but it's supposed to get a little bit better. Hope wherever you're at, the weather's nice and you guys have a safe and good day. Make sure you're carrying, watch your back, and we will see you guys next time.